Hi, I'm Delia, and Lancer Media is here today with Jada, who gave a speech about gun violence prevention and shared the stage with the Vice President Kamala Harris last Friday. Jada, tell me a little bit more about that experience. What was it like to share the stage with the Vice President?
It was both terrifying and exhilarating, but if there's one thing that I have to say, she is like such a nice and genuine person. Like as I was waiting, there's like, a brief pause before she came out. She walked up, and at first, she had her back to me because she's like waving at everyone, and then she turns around and she's like grinning at me. She looked at me and she was like, "You did a great job." And so that moment where you see it's going like that, that's what she was saying to me. And I was so happy, like I wanted to cry, but I was like, I don't want my makeup to get messed up. But it was like just really nice to hear that from her. And then, obviously I had to like run backstage and get escorted like all the way back around. But yeah, it was so cool. She's such a genuine person, and it was just amazing to have that opportunity. It was surreal. Like, to be honest, I know that it happened, but I think my mind just kind of blanked during the whole experience. So yeah.
Yeah, that is it's such a cool opportunity, and not very many people can say that that the Vice President of the United States told them that they did a great job on a speech. What kind of preparation goes into preparing for a speech like that at such a big level?
Oh my goodness, so much. A few people asked me, they're like, "Oh, did you write that yourself?" And I was like, "Oh my goodness, no." So essentially what happened is I found out that I got the opportunity on the Friday before, so 7 days before. Principal Smith called me and he was like, the Vice President is going to be having an event. I did not know that it was at Lewis. I just knew an event next Friday. And then her speechwriting team was like, "We want input from a high school student." And I was like, okay. So I talked to her speechwriting people. They asked me some questions and I answered their questions. And so what I was under the impression is that she's going to go to some event and she's going to use some of my words to inspire a speech. I did not know she was going to quote me directly. I did not know that I was going to be speaking. And then on Tuesday, so, 3 days leading up to it, Principal Smith was like, "Jada, can you stop by my office after school?" And I was like, "Sure." And he was like, "There's a possibility of a speaking engagement for you." And I was like, "Okay." And then Thursday, so the day before, he called me into his office again, and he was like, "Let's write something. You get 200 words." So I sat down with him, and I wrote like my draft of what I was gonna say. And then it went through edits and edits and edits. It went through about a dozen people. And then I didn't get the final draft of the speech until the morning of, so that morning. And I had to get like background checked. They had to do like security clearances. I had to get a COVID test that morning just to like be near her. And it was so weird getting emails that say like on behalf of the Vice President from the White House. And I was in and out of the office like Thursday and Friday all day. It was so hard. I wasn't allowed to talk about it. I wasn't allowed to tell anyone. So it was like hard to kind of cover it up to my friends of why I keep going to the principal's office. But yeah, there was like extensive preparation that went behind it. So that was probably the thing that was most difficult, is I wanted to deliver the speech naturally, but obviously I had to go through a lot of edits from the White House. So making sure like I stayed on script, if you will, because I couldn't just, go up there and start talking. But yeah.
Wow, so you got to work with the Vice President's writing team.
There's her speech writing team, yeah.
Oh wow, that is so cool. What kind of personal preparation and like with the nerves and the excitement, what goes into that aspect of it as you're preparing for the speech, like right before?
Okay, so in the dance room, they made it to the photo room. So there was a bunch of people who had been cleared who were gonna be taking photos with her. And we were in there from about 2:45, 3 o'clock up until when it was time to go on stage, just waiting for her. And there's like the superintendent's there, the mayor of Falls Church is there, the president of the Norfolk Federation of Teachers there. There's all these important people, and I'm just sitting there holding the paper like this. And I was sitting there and I'm like mouthing the words to myself. And then this man is sitting next to me and he was like, "Oh, hi." And I was like so embarrassed because he sees me talking to myself, and he was like, no, like, he didn't know what I was gonna be doing. So I handed it to him and he was like, "Wait, what's this for?" And I was like, "I'm introducing the Vice President." He was like, "Oh my goodness." And then he helped me practice. So he held onto the speech and I like practiced making eye contact and talking to him. And then the superintendent, she came over and she sat down next to me and she was like, "You've got this, you're gonna be fine." And it was her and him and then the chair of the school board. She came over and they were like, "We might not be there with you physically, but we're with you like in spirit, and it's gonna be fine." And they told me, they were like, "Your words are like some of the most powerful of any of the people that are gonna be speaking at this event," which was amazing to hear, but also like so much pressure. It doesn't sound realistic, but I kind of just told myself, like, you get one opportunity to do this. And I really wanted to represent our school in a positive light because I am a student here. And the fact that there's so many schools in Fairfax County, she could have chosen to gone anywhere, and she chose us. And I wanted her to not regret that choice, if that makes sense. And I just felt kind of this responsibility that I wanted as a student representative to make our school look good. And so I think that kind of helped my nerves a lot because I felt like I had a responsibility. But to be honest, really the only thing that made me feel calm, because I was terrified, I'm shaking, there's a teleprompter, and then one of her Secret Service people's like, okay, time to go. And I walked out, but there was these deafening cheers after they were and now welcoming Jada Hughes. And then I was like, you know what? I've got this. Hearing so many people cheering and seeing my teachers in the audience and seeing friends of mine, and they're all yay. I was like, okay, I got this. But yeah.
Wow. Well, coming from a student who saw the speech, we're so proud of you.
Thank you.
Absolutely so proud that you're representing the school, and you did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Wonderful job.
Thank you.
What did the selection process look like? Why were you picked to deliver the speech?
Okay, so I wish I had a more detailed answer, but essentially, so I take theory of knowledge with Mr. Powell, and it was 7th period, and Dr. March, she came into the room, which she does quite often, and she was just listening to what was going on in the class, and then she'd been there for about 15-20 minutes, and she was like, oh, guys, by the way, I have this opportunity from Principal Smith. Would any of you guys, you seniors, like to speak publicly about gun violence? And that's all she said. And I was like, yes, I would like to do it. But almost everyone in the class raised their hands, and then she was like, if not one of you guys, do you know another person who would be willing to do it? So we were suggesting names, and she had her phone and she was taking our names down. And then she asked each of us is there a specific reason why? And I was like, well, I've attended 3 different high schools. I've kind of seen this is a constant problem across the country. I have a sister who's in kindergarten, and so my concern is for the next generation. She was like, okay. But there's other people who also had personal experiences. And then she was like, okay, great. And she just left. And then I got a call from my mom at 4 o'clock, and she was like, the principal's gonna call you at 4:30 about what you said earlier. And I was like, what I said earlier. I had almost forgotten about that conversation. Right. And then he called me at 4:30 and he was like, this event is gonna happen. Yeah. So yeah, I don't really know any of the behind the scenes stuff. A lot of people ask me on Friday, oh, are you in leadership, SGA or anything like that? And I was like, no. I was just as shocked as anybody else, but I was really grateful to have the opportunity because it's one of those things where I was just extremely lucky that I was the person that was chosen, but I felt this responsibility that because I had that much luck, I needed to do a good job. So, yeah.
My name is Jada Hughes, and I'm a senior here at John R. Lewis High School in Springfield, Virginia. In my final days as a Fairfax County public school student, I feel very privileged to be here speaking before you all in favor of gun violence prevention. At the same time, I'm disappointed that this is still a conversation. I've attended 3 high schools in my path to graduation in 3 different school districts, both here in Virginia and across the country in Washington State. One thing is constant. Kids are concerned about gun violence. Gun violence prevention is important to me, not only for myself, but for future students, such as my sister, who's only in kindergarten. With 10 days left to my graduation, I really want to see this through a positive lens. Let's take it upon ourselves to inspire action so that my sister and her kindergarten classmates, as well as students across the country, can worry about homework and tests, not gun violence. I'm grateful to shine a spotlight on this very important issue to help students regain a sense of safety in our schools. And I'm most honored to stand before you all and say, let's welcome the first ever female Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris.
What do you think are some actions that students can be taking to prevent gun violence? Maybe they don't have an opportunity to speak at an event, but how can students be taking daily action?
So the man who actually saw me talking to myself and was helping me with my speech, he's representative of a not-for-profit in DC called Students Demand Action Now, and it's a not-for-profit that students can get involved with virtually. So I would definitely suggest people check that out. Also, March for Our Lives is a really big organization. Also, I would just say that students shouldn't put too much pressure on themselves, because as much as it's something that you should take action about, I think it's an issue that affects the mental health of all of us, both students and teachers. And so the idea that you may not feel comfortable speaking about it, it may be a difficult topic to process, that's okay. And I think that's completely valid. Another thing that I think students can do is to, if they don't necessarily, like you said, want to speak about it, is to try to inform themselves more about the legislation in each of the states about like gun regulation and things pertaining to that. Like Marianne, our senior class president, she had like looked up some of the not laws, but like referendums that had been passed about gun legislation under the Biden-Harris administration, kind of just to familiarize yourself a little bit more, because I think a lot of people, they don't pay attention to state and local elections. And so when students are frustrated about how their school is handling something, that's not the federal level, that's like the school board elections. And even if you yourself can't vote, you can, talk to your parents about it. Even if you can ask some of your teachers if you want more information. But at the same time, I would say that it's important to realize, even though you have a big role, it doesn't fall entirely on you to do something about this. So just, making sure that you reach out to the people in your own community. I could not have shared the stage with the vice president just on my own. It was a community of people, that came out, that supported me, that helped me. So I would tell like students to remember that, that it's not just you that's doing it or thinking about it.
Yeah, that you're like supported by a whole community of people, but it takes like each individual doing their own part to make change.
Exactly.
And thank you so much for sharing your inspiring story. It was so great to hear from you.
It was great to talk to you. Thank you.